Now let's start learning something about the menus in detail and then the panels along with it. The menu bar over here is very similar to what tools you've probably seen in the other softwares as well. There is something for file, which lets you open and close multiple documents. This is also where you can save your work and export it in different formats. Here's what you get for exportation. We'll get into all of these things in detail. Moving on, there is edit. This is about manipulating your content within the document. This is where you find commands for undo, redo, cut, copy, paste, and as well as transform your selections. Currently, I don't have anything selected over here, but if I did, let's say this layer, I should be able to do a couple of transforms over here. Similarly, there is image, which is everything related to the overall attributes of the image. It allows me to make fine adjustments to color, adjustments to the difference, hue, saturation, and a couple of stuff like that. And it allows me to do few analysis pieces for the data and the images over here as well. The next thing is for layers. This is your go-to place for making precise, non-destructive workflow. It allows you to create new layers or delete the current ones. It also allows you to create mask for layers, group layers, and merge layers if necessary. Next thing is for time. Once you start typing in Photoshop, might be for posters, might be for YouTube thumbnails or something else, then you'll lead over this panel. This is where you'll be able to change a lot of the text settings in the Photoshop interface. Then comes select. Selection is a big thing in Photoshop. Once you select it, you might want to refine the selection. You might want to change how the selection has been made. That basically means inverse or reselect. If in case you'd want to select from multiple layers, you'd want to isolate layers, or if you'd want to mask, all of these options are available in the select menu bar. Next is filter. Very similar to Instagram or Snapchat, these filters let you get creative with your work. You can stylize, you can add blurs, you can also change stuff to 3D. We'll get into all of this. The next thing is 3D. We'll not get into this in detail. We will in due time. Moving on, the next thing is view. View allows you to see how your images or your work is going to be shown on screen. There are options for rulers, there are options for guides, and you can set how zoom in or zoom out you'd want the visual to be for your canvas. There is something for plugins. I don't have any plugins installed over here. We'll see if these plugins are necessary for our usual workspace. The next thing is window. Window is basically everything that you have visible in your Photoshop workspace. These are multiple panels that you can turn on, turn off. There is something to arrange multiple documents. Let's say if I have two documents open over here, I can arrange them to, let's say, do up vertical. So that way I can see both my documents together at once. Very similarly, I can do that for float. Now with that, I'd be able to change how my document is appearing in my workspace. If I can go back, I can also see a couple of other settings over here, and I can also move on to multiple documents directly from this panel. And lastly, there is help. This is where you can get find tutorials. You can add or manage your accounts over here as well. Now that's everything to do about menu bar. Very quickly moving on to the panels. There are a few panels that you'd see repeatedly. One, the most important one probably, is layers. This is where you see all the different layers that you're working with in your Photoshop document. There could be multiple layers, and each layer will have their own specific settings. We'll get into details of all of this in a bit. Now the next thing is history panel. This panel lets me keep a track of my editing steps, whether it's creating or doing any actions, probably even undoing actions. It creates a snapshot of my project at various steps, and each of these steps can be traced back. The next thing that we probably see is the adjustments panel. Now these adjustments have different variations in different versions of Photoshop, but more or less this is what it's going to be like. I can create multiple adjustments which is non-destructive on a particular layer directly by clicking over here. And with this, I can change the settings. which you can see is happening through the properties panel. The properties panel is basically the kind of settings for every layer or for every tool. The next thing that I use personally a lot is the character and the type. I don't have it open over here, but let me just do that. I can bring it from here, and here you can see the set of settings for characters. I can see the font face, font style, the size of the font, the leading, which is basically the space between between two different lines, the kerning and the tracking for different characters. I can also select the thickness or the height for each of the font sizes as well. These are basically few settings of the fonts. And similarly, there is something for paragraphs. You've probably seen this somewhere else, but left alignment, center and right alignment, justified left, justified center and justified right, and all justified. And there are a couple of other settings for indentations and hyphenation over here as well. This is another tool that I use a lot, and that's why I'm mentioning this to you. And that's basically something about the menus and the panels. Let's get into more detail with the upcoming projects.